Welcome to First Gen 101, the podcast where first generation graduates share their stories and career tips. I am your host, Miguel Sanchez. In this episode, Nelson Rodriguez shares invaluable insights on mentorship, finding balance, and turning struggles into triumphs. A must listen for anyone passionate about supporting first generation students. Welcome to another episode of the First Gen 101 podcast. We have Nelson Rodriguez. Nelson, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Nelson, tell me about your background.
I'm first generation, born here in the United States in North New Jersey of Salvadoran immigrants, my mom and my dad. And so I'm their firstborn and the first of two brothers. Education was always the most important thing in the house. Like I didn't even have chores growing up because my chore was to come home and get good grades. Like a lot of immigrant families, that was my job. I remember distinctly when I first started working at McDonald's, my dad was very upset because he didn't think I would have time to work and continue getting good grades. So I was an honor society student for all 4 years of high school. I also played sports and was involved in different clubs in school just so I could have a social life along with all the studying that I had to do. But then I also wanted to make money. There was a McDonald's in my neighborhood and a lot of my friends were working there. So I went to work there. But my dad was upset because trabajo es estudiar. That's the mentality that's been in my life as I've been going from different locations, different careers, and getting different degrees.
And at what point in your high school experience did you decide, I want to go to college? And what was your goal? How did you see yourself in the future in terms of a career?
Yeah, so I didn't have it, again, first generation, firstborn. I didn't really have a choice of not going to college. My parents were very adamant from when I was in grade school to high school that education was going to be my way of succeeding in this country, which is what they wanted for me and my brother. As soon as freshman year hit, I started talking to my guidance counselor, what do I do to get into college? And I was already in the National Honor Society. Instead of having a double gym their senior year, I took an AP chemistry and AP bio class because I was like, okay, I have good grades, but I need better grades. And so and looking back, I could have just taken one AP class and had a lot of fun my senior year. But in that mentality of not knowing who to ask, and my guidance counselor didn't really say yes or no to me about taking these AP courses, but knowing that I could have taken just maybe AP science or AP biology as opposed to both these very intense courses on my senior year. And then all my friends are like having double gym. I'm going back into the classroom to study. Again, gave me a great foundation, but if I could go over and tell a high school student, enjoy, find balance.
How was the college selection process? How did you make your list? How did you decide which colleges you were applying to? And how did you eventually choose your college?
Yeah, so neither one of my parents has a degree. My mom graduated up to 5th grade because then she had to start working. And my dad didn't finish high school. The process of them helping me was just getting on me to remind me, did you apply for this school? Did you apply for that school? Have you heard back from this school? And I'm a little older, so this is before the internet, before email. So everything came in the mail. I would have to tell my parents, we have to wait for the mail to come in. There's no other way to tell if I've been accepted or not. My friends were also first generation. So we didn't have big lists. We didn't have an opportunity to see colleges outside of New Jersey. I knew about Ivy Leagues, but I never thought of it, never crossed in my mind. I got lucky and my guidance counselor put me in a recruitment room for Montclair State University's pre-med program. There was about a handful of us and the recruiter came down, who I'm actually friends with now, Miss Arena Smith at Montclair State University. She came in and talked about the pre-med program and it focused a lot on first-gen students who want to go into pre-med. And they offered me an interview and I took the interview. When they offered me the opportunity, they offered it to me before the school even offered me admission into Montclair State. I just said yes because I was, oh, okay, this is easy. I just talked about myself for 10, 15 minutes. They talked to my mom and they accepted me into the pre-med program. So why am I going to apply for other programs when I already knew that? Not knowing any better, I wasn't able to compare financial aid packages, which is what I tell college students now. You may have your dream school, but financial aid packages are important. And you can always go to your dream school for graduate school or for your doctorate if that's the avenue you want to take. Always compare your financial packages because I did get a better financial package from a different school after accepting Montclair State, but I love Montclair State. I don't have my Montclair State mug here because I want to promote my current job, which is Sarah Lawrence College, but I have Montclair State everywhere. Very happy with the decision I made to go to that particular institution. I ended up also working there for a couple of years and getting my master's from Montclair State.
It sounds like you had people who helped you with the selection process, which made it much easier. And so now you start college and you're in your first semester. What were some of the biggest challenges you encountered as a first generation student?
Not being told when to wake up was a big challenge. When I stayed on campus, I rarely slept. I came up raised in a very strict household where as a senior in high school, I had a 10 p.m. curfew. I remember one time my mom got mad at me because I was talking to a girl on the phone and it was like 10:30. And it was so embarrassing because this was back then in the day when there was house phones. And so she picked up the other line and said, Neso, vete with me yet. I'm like, Mom, don't do that. Luckily, the girl laughed it off. But when I got to college, I didn't sleep. I slept in class. And so after a first semester of doing that, I righted the ship myself, realizing that I need to focus a little bit more on this. Again, with the pre-med program that I was in Montclair State, I did have an advisor, but being first gen, being a little hard-headed, I didn't really go too much to my advising sessions, which I regret. I should have gone to more advising sessions than I missed. But it did help me again in terms of knowing that I had help. I just didn't ask for it. But I always try to do things my own way, which is not what I tell first gen students to do, always ask for help. But I didn't do that. For me, it was really, the difficult part was, again, knowing when to turn off the fun part of college and then when to ask for help, because there are people at the college that are getting paid through your tuition that are there to help you.
I couldn't agree with you more on that advice. The heart of this podcast is to offer that advice. There are people who may not readily ask for help, but offering help here, our goal is to reach as many people as we can. Speaking of help, did you find mentors in college? How was the process of that mentorship? Did you have any, and how did that work out for you?
Yeah. So the director of the pre-med program, Don Lorenzo, was a great mentor of mine. She was also a Latina first-gen student. She saw a lot of opportunities along with other students in the program. Whenever I needed to ask her a question, she was always there to answer it, along with the recruiter, Serena Smith, and my advisor, Miss Washington. I still call her Miss Washington. We were colleagues for 10 years, but I'll never call her by her first name. But it shows the level of respect that I have for her and the graciousness I have for the work they do. There were some professors that, while I was taking the class, that mentored me a little bit. I have other professors that I still stay in contact now that were extremely helpful. I did leave the pre-med program and went into psychology, but there's a particular professor, Dr. Reagan, who just opened up my eyes into the world of social services and helping other people. I still stay in contact with her to this day.
One of the things we emphasize in this podcast is in college, you're going to pursue a degree, but equally important, you're going to build a network because you are going to interact with other people. So it's really important that, as Nelson mentioned, not only seek help during college, but also keep in touch with those people as you graduate and pursue other opportunities. One of the benefits of going to college is that you get to meet other people, and it's important to keep those relationships. You mentioned graduate school a few times. Did you go to graduate school after undergrad, and how was that process different than going to college?
I got my graduate degree 11 years after my undergraduate degree. I started working during the summer of my freshman year, going to my sophomore year. A friend of mine told me about a nonprofit in the city of Newark called La Casa Don Pedro. They were hiring college students and they paid $10 an hour to help mentor in a program called the Newark Youth Leadership Project. And I was like, oh, I can do that. I can go help out kids and get paid $10 an hour. It's only a summer gig. That's not a problem. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. Casa Don Pedro is one of the larger nonprofit organizations in North New Jersey. That's come back a second summer. And then towards December of that year, the coordinator, he had mentioned to me if I was interested in taking the full-time position as a coordinator for this leadership program at this nonprofit. And at the same time, I had just switched from being a pre-med biology student to a psychology student, focusing a lot on community health, a lot on youth development, community engagement. And I was like, oh, I told him, like, I'm still an undergrad. Like, I still have a couple of years left. And he said, yeah, we'll work around your schedule. And if you work around hours, and it worked. I still stayed full-time as a college student, started working full-time at a nonprofit organization as coordinator for this youth leadership program. I took a lot of classes on Saturdays and some on the evenings. And if I had to take a class in the morning, they would accommodate my schedule so that I would start a little later. But I did work full-time and then went to school full-time around my junior year of college.
Would you say that experience led you to pick your graduate program? Would you say that experience led you to wanting to help first generation students?
Definitely not the graduate program. That one I'll explain in a minute. But it did help me to understand working in communities, working with different folks, providing opportunities. I went from La Casa San Pedro to another smaller nonprofit called the Club del Barrio, where I was the advisor for the teen center. That was the job that transformed everything for me. In that job, Dr. Bosch, who I don't say as much contact now as I would like to, but she saw a lot of promise in me. She had me learn everything about the nonprofit, everything. We were a small staff, I think about 30, 40 people. And I was always eager and willing to listen and to work. She had me helping with the Meals on Wheels, which helped the HIV and AIDS recipients. I worked with the daycare center. I also helped with domestic violence. I also went to board meetings, which I was 20 something years old going to these board meetings. So that helped me expand my network, learn how to grow and work in different communities, but also focus on the work I was doing as the advisor for the teen center, working with the high school students in the area, providing opportunities for them when it came to college applications, when it came to professional development. We took field trips. Like I remember I would take them to Washington, D.C. in a day. We didn't have a lot of money for the nonprofit, but we had a van. And I remember my first time going to Washington, D.C. and you could do a lot of the stuff in D.C. for free. You just got to drive there. I was younger. I could take the 4-hour drive, walk around all day, take the 4-hour drive back. And it worked. A lot of the work I do now at Sarah Lawrence College, I learned at that time working at Club del Barrio.
How did you get involved working with first generation students or mentoring first generation students?
So I've always somehow mentored first generation students. That's just been a thing in different positions I've had, whether it's nonprofit. I worked in local government. I used to work for the mayor of Newark, Cory Booker, then mayor of Newark, now Senator Booker. And students would always gravitate to each other. First generation students and myself, we always just gravitated towards each other. It was intrinsic thing to do. I didn't go out and say, hey, I'm going to mentor you to get into college, or hey, I'm going to mentor you because you're just like me, first gen, trying to get everything done. Then I, at one point, applied for a position at my alma mater, Montclair State University, for the Upward Bound program, which is a federal first gen assistance program. And that's a program that's all over the United States and in the territories of Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. This program is amazing. I saw it was at my alma mater, and I applied as for assistant director of that project. That opened up a whole avenue to purposefully work in the first gen sphere, not just provide possible opportunities to mentor students here and there, but this was more purposeful with the work I learned at nonprofits, the work that I learned in city government, helped me to network and grow and understand more of the first gen struggles, particularly for that generation, because the first gen struggles from my generation changed for those that are now in the current generation of first gen students. Because there is, I want to say more opportunity, but with more choice, more opportunity becomes more confusion. And with mine, it was a straight to a cut. Montclair State University offered me the pre-med program. I didn't even look at my other schools. I was like that. But as I mentioned before, I always try to have high school students now, when they're in their senior year, look at your financial aid packages. Because even though you're filling out the FAFSA, some schools will offer you private grants and private scholarships that they won't offer until you get accepted. So look at the offers before making your choice.
What are some of the toughest challenges you are seeing with students choosing a college? What do you think are some of the toughest challenges they're facing?
Financial. It's always going to be financial. When I was growing up, college was still not as affordable and there wasn't as much financial aid. It's gotten less affordable and there's been less financial aid. There's a larger trend of first generation students going to college than there was 10, 15 years ago. What I always tell students, as soon as the FAFSA opens, the Federal Application for Free Student Aid, fill it out. It is not an infinite amount of money. It's a finite amount the government decides to give you depending on how much money your parents make. But also colleges look at the FAFSA to decide whether they should be giving you more or less financial aid from their own institution. It is a trend now to bring in first generation programming, first generation students, because there's more opportunities for generation programming. Again, I will mention my alma mater, Montclair State University. A friend of mine now works, or did work, she just left for a different institution, for a program that specifically recruits and brings in first generation students called First to Fly. That's a trend that's going on with a lot of other institutions now, where they are particularly looking, and as I talk to parents, particular parents that are immigrants, when they hear deudas, that they have to owe money I always tell them it's an investment, as opposed to thinking that you may have to take out a loan, and it always has to be federal loans. Never take a private loan. The loans may seem scary at the time, but it's something you pay over time. It's an investment. It's the first investment, just like taking AP courses or honors courses. You're investing your time to improve your education. When I was running the Upper Bound program at Montclair State and then became the director at Rutgers University, I would tell parents, look, your child is coming to class on Saturdays, because with the Upper Bound program, students take extra courses to strengthen their math, science, and writing skills. But they're taking classes on Saturday. That's 6 days of school. And it's mandatory. You have to come to these Saturday programmings. And so it's an investment. Just like they're investing their time, taking out loans is an investment for the future financially for their children and for the kids themselves. But that's always the scariest one when we come to the fast film and talk about taking out money. The loans always scare the parents, especially first-gen parents. And I've tried to dissuade them into being scared of it and seeing it as an investment into the future.
What are some of the challenges first-gen students face as they start their careers?
I've been mentoring some young people, or now adults, looking to see if the job they're applying for has a 401k is the investment, and retirement, looking at retirement funds, looking to plan financially towards the future, but also picking out the right healthcare that they need for themselves and their families, if they're going to have families as well. A car. Some students want like the fancy brand new car, but there are some cars that maintenance costs more just because of the nature of the car. Just getting them to understand their finances. Credit cards. I have a friend called the Budgetnista, Tiffany Alish, graduate of Montclair State University. She talks about, she does a program called the 1 Week Budget that helps people budget what they need and what they don't need. She's been, I believe, on Oprah. She talked to the Obamas about it. She's done amazing stuff. And she's from finances and understanding your finances. Do you need the brand new iPhone? Maybe you want to pay your rent first. So there's all things that, unfortunately, our parents don't always talk to us about, like credit cards, taking out loans for a car, maintenance on a car. How many times you have to go in to get, again, I keep staying on this, but it's important that folks understand that you can get the really nice car when you're a little bit more established in your career. No one's going to judge your car. And if they are judging your car, then it's different.
That's a great point. And when we were developing the idea of this podcast, we thought about doing one on first-gen finances or personal finances.
I recommend that very much.
How do you think college has transformed your life?
I enjoyed my time as an undergrad at Montclair State University. I was there for 5 years, and I always tell students it's not that scary to be there 5 years. I switched majors, and I had to catch up. My last semester there, I only took one course because I just needed 2 more credits to graduate. I was not paying attention to my credits. When I took the position at Montclair State University for the Upper Bound project, I then decided, you know what? I am telling these first-gen students, the first ones in their families, to take this leap to go into college. I should do the same thing with my graduate degree and get my graduate degree. So then I, as an example for the students in my care, I applied for the graduate program, got in, and was able to balance work and school, as well as other things that I was doing as volunteering. I was a soccer coach for a couple of years in the city of Newark, did some volunteer work with the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, with United Way, and still maintaining the networks, still doing school, still doing my social stuff, and really getting involved as a graduate student, which that's another podcast for another day, because I did a whole study about graduate students and how they may or may not be involved in campus life as you would think they would be. But we'll talk about that another day. I got lucky, and really college helped me to understand the balance of having your social life, educational life, professional life. For me, I just melded all those things together and had a life. I spent my time in the library, but I also spent time at a bar with friends for happy hour. I volunteered in my community, volunteering, coaching soccer, and was able to find the balance in all of that, as well as still see my friends and family, visit my parents. I see my parents at least once a week, but finding that balance. And college really helped me find that balance as an undergrad and as a grad student.
What do you wish you had known when you were a first-generation student during your first year in college?
Like I said, ask for help. That is the biggest thing. More and more colleges are investing in advisement. More and more colleges are also accepting students that are non-declared majors, which when I was applying for college, my guidance counselor in high school told me you have to apply as a major. You can't go undeclared. But now that's not the same. Now schools do look at that. They look at your extracurriculars. They look at your essay. They look at things that you're doing in your community. They're looking if you have a part-time job. I worked at McDonald's on my college application. The admissions officer would have looked at that and said, "Oh, he's working. He's spending his time doing something outside of just doing nothing." But really, if I would have asked for help, I would have graduated on time. I would have been able to possibly maybe even think about graduate school as I was an undergrad, because I didn't think about it until I went back to work at this college to get my graduate degree. And really look for advisors, look for mentors. I always tell students that there are 3 levels of mentoring. You have your advisor that's there just for your college and your academics. You find a mentor that also cares about academics, but also cares about your personal life. And then you find a champion. And your champion is the CEO of a company or the president or the vice president that knows just about enough of you to write a recommendation letter, but you're not going to invite them to your wedding. You're not going to tell them about your breakup. You're just going to share the good stuff, but you need that person. You need that champion when you're applying for jobs or you're applying for opportunities. But then the mentor and the advisor, those are the people you tell everything to. But find those 3. When you get to college, find those 3 for yourself. I had my champion was a Dr. Tolman in my graduate program. Doesn't really know anything about my personal life, but when I get a new job or I'm applying for a new position, I send him a quick email. "Hey, Dr. Tolman, can I use you as a recommendation letter?" And he works he's the director of the PhD program down in Georgia Southern University. And he still remembers me as a student and writes amazing recommendation letters. So,
Nelson, I don't think we can end the podcast any other way. That advice of finding mentors, even specific mentors, was very inspiring. And I need to go out there and find my champion. Nelson, thank you for speaking with me today. I appreciate your time. And I know this conversation will continue. We should have you in the future once again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time.